Hi, everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and begin. My name is Amanda Hughes, and I'm from Dallas. I am a fifth-generation Texan. I am a licensed esthetician, so I'm in the skincare industry. I teach cosmetic chemistry to other skincare professionals, and I am also a cannabis educator. Before I was any of that, I was an herbalist, so I'm still an herbalist. But herbalism and the power of plants and the medicinal uses of plants is what brought me to cannabis. But I was motivated by an illness. So I wasn't well. 16, 15. Long story short, I saw 5 doctors. I had 3 very unnecessary surgeries. So I lost a lot of faith in the medical community for my particular issues and decided, what am I doing? I have other resources. So I sort of tweaked and really got really specific with my plant medicine, and I began to feel better. And I found a doctor that would work with me on allowing me to sort of approach this from more of a natural standpoint. And I think she actually just felt sorry for me because I had 3 unnecessary surgeries. And so she kept running labs on me, and within about 3 months, my numbers were improving. I wasn't really feeling a whole lot better, but the numbers were improving. And then of course that had an effect on me where even though I wasn't feeling better, the numbers say I'm feeling better. So wait, maybe do I feel better? So I came to, that was around 2000, right before the Farm Bill. So I came to an understanding of what CBD was. So let's talk about like my cannabis use up until that point was recreational, vacation, parties, occasional, relaxation. I wasn't a big drinker, so occasionally I would use it. And I did understand that it had medical purposes, but then I didn't realize that I had ever used it for medical purposes until I began to realize that, the psychological effects, the relaxation, the better sleep, the less anxiety, that those were my medical effects. So I looked into further and further and further. I wanted to understand how does CBD work and how could it help me? And I'll get to that a little bit. And I know that some other speakers have covered it today, but it's a balancer. It helps to create homeostasis in your body. And all I knew at that time was how could that not be good? And there's a lot of herbs that we use called adaptogens that do the same thing. So I was sort of relating it to that. But in herbal medicine, we don't necessarily have an ashwagandha receptor in our body. So that's a great adaptogen herb. And we don't necessarily have chaga mushroom receptors in our body, but we do have endogenous or internal cannabinoid receptors in our body. So I started using the CBD and my numbers really did start to improve. I really was feeling better. It was a full spectrum product, meaning it contained all the compounds natural to the plant. Which include trace amounts of THC, other cannabinoids, and the terpenes. And I did a lot of research because being a skincare formula and coming from that cosmetic chemistry world, I understood white papers and research and how can I look at these lab reports and what's important. So I found some products I liked. Of course, they weren't Texas products because this was 2016 or 16. And I got it from Colorado, but they were part of the research project and able to ship before the Farm Bill. So my doctor was really actually very encouraged, and she wanted to know more. What are you doing? And I would always tell her, this is what I'm doing. And when you go to the doctor and they take your medical history and they say like, okay, well, like what medications do you take and what supplements do you take? Well, most of the time they have like a drop down menu and they can just go, oh, vitamin C, click, vitamin D, click. And well, they didn't have any clicks for any of the herbs I was using or any of the cannabinoid medicine I was using. So it just wouldn't get documented. So my doctor, fantastic doctor, if you're in Dallas and you need an endocrinologist, I'd love to recommend her, but she was encouraged, she encouraged me, and beyond CBD, I then started to understand more about where these receptors are in your body and why CBD worked and how possibly could other cannabinoids work. So, you know, you have these endogenous cannabinoid receptors in your body that work to help keep you in balance and keep you in homeostasis. Well, the CB2 receptors are kind of in your peripheral body, in your immune cells in your gut. But your CB1 are primarily neurological in your brain and your central nervous system. There's a lot of crossover. And one of the crossovers is your thyroid. Your thyroid has abundant amount of CB1 and CB2. Well, I knew that my CBD was not doing a lot of direct effects on the CB1. It was really kind of doing all it could do on that CB2. So I added THC into my regular sort of a microdosing, little in the morning, little in the afternoon, little more at night. I primarily use tinctures. And when I did that, within 4 months, and maybe it was sooner, I just didn't get the lab work until 4 months, I was what I call healed. I felt so much better. I had more energy. I had less pain. My numbers were, the evidence was there in the numbers. So I was sold. Like, I had to know more about this plant. I had to learn and consume everything I could. And then I had to go tell the world. So when you get into this world, and that was still 2016. When you get into this world, especially in the state, you find out, wow, we're really limited. Like, is CBD even legal now? And why not? And then you start to really get, and for me, I really got deep into like the social justice component and patients' rights. And when you meet a lot of these patients, which I'm sure you have this weekend, I then became fueled more by the advocacy, even so, than the medicine, because without the advocacy, we won't have full access to the medicine that we need, right? Amen. Can I get a amen? Okay. So what I want to talk to you today is much less serious than all of that story, but I kind of wanted you to know where I come from, because I feel like my world is several worlds combined, sort of colliding into one space right now. So I have been an esthetician for over 17 years, full-time in the treatment room, working with derms, and also in my own practice. And I can tell you, and most of you that, you know, have ever had a skin issue, most of the corrective treatments that I'm doing, that dermatologists that are doing for skincare conditions, are issues of imbalance, and you're either overcompensating or you're undercompensating topically or internally, right? Too much or too little of something. So most of the time, our skin conditions, the common skin conditions, are things that we're causing, even if we don't feel like we're causing them. So even when you get down to like psoriasis and eczema and things that are really pretty chronic, rosacea, a lot of what we're doing is causing that. It is really, really, really hard to figure out what you're probably doing to cause these issues in your skin. We can talk about, well, we're going to eliminate gluten, we're going to eliminate dairy, and what about this product, and do you use that? You shouldn't use that. We could talk about that, but what if we could introduce science that just created more balance in your body, and everything else sort of fell into place? Because if this endogenous cannabinoid system is the great balancer, those imbalances show up differently in me than they do in you, right? You may have an IBS, you may have rosacea, you may have chronic migraines, you may have thyroid issues. So how they show up in you is different than how they might show up in another person, but still, we still want to find that, create that balance. It's the same in your skin. So there's something called Endogenous Cannabinoid Deficiency Syndrome, and I'm going to say ECS from now on. That deficiency is thought to contribute to a wide variety of human diseases, but also skin conditions. So I'm going to break down the skin just a little bit here, and then in a little bit more detail, so that you can really understand, you know, how this medicine works in your skin. So restoring that endogenous cannabinoid tone in your skin, sort of the balance in your skin, and creating that new homeostasis is really an incredibly powerful, sort of undervalued approach to treat a lot of inflammatory skin conditions. So inflammatory skin conditions covers just about every skin condition you can possibly imagine, just like in your body. If you have inflammation in your body, how many diseases and conditions can we list that are caused by just inflammation? So that dysregulation in the endogenous cannabinoid system, or the imbalance, that has been implicated as contributing to things like atopic dermatitis, psoriasis, scleroderma, acne, pigmentation disorders, keratin diseases, and even early skin cancers, and itch. Itch is a really big one. So that's the endogenous cannabinoid receptors, or the endogenous cannabinoid system. The role is to constantly sort of control the activity of the endogenous or internal cannabinoids. So you have exo, meaning from the plant, or phyto, from the plant cannabinoids, and you have endogenous, the ones that your system naturally makes. You've probably heard this a dozen times over the last couple of days. So both those endogenous, internal, and the exo, the external cannabinoids, can affect that epidermal homeostasis. They can both have an effect. So we're not always in perfect health. So those endogenous cannabinoids are not always doing quite the job, and that's why we supplement with cannabis, right, in lots of scenarios. So in short, cannabis can regulate the function of your skin, the cell turnover, the immunity, inflammation, pigment, oil regulation. So when I say oil regulation, if you have dry skin, now you're going, oh, oil regulation. If you have acne, you're going, oh, oil regulation. So oil regulation, meaning whomever needs it. You have those three layers of the skin here. You have the epidermis, right, which is that very tippy top layer. And you have even deeper, you have the dermis, which is where you have some sebum production, and you have the hypodermis even below that, which is just microcirculation. I'm going to get into it a little deeper though. See? So yes, if you have questions, ask as we go, because otherwise you might forget.
I mean, I indicated that you're about to talk about this. I kind of lowered my hand, but I was thinking, I feel like cannabis helps to right underneath her.
Yeah, and how does it do that if it's not? If you're taught, you feel like what cannabis in what form? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we know that THC is what when just most of us know tachycardia, heart rate. And anytime you get your heart rate like up, whether it's intentional or unintentional, then that's circulation, right? So yeah, and I'm going to get into a little bit of that, a little bit more of that. So up in that tippy top layer, that epidermis layer, that's formed by what's epithelial cells or skin cells. So epithelial cells called keratinocytes. So you're going to hear me talk about keratinocytes a lot. At the very top is it's what we call the stratum corneum, and that's your barrier. That's what, if you have dry skin and you kind of scratch it and you feel like some flakes come off, that was your stratum corneum. So the stratum corneum is what gives you this waterproof, like a physical protection against elements. It's what makes your skin not permeable, and it gives you some UV radiation depending on the levels of melanin in your skin. And microbial invasion, right? It keeps germs out. Like we kind of take for granted that the skin is doing all this work for us, and we have so much of it. So if a little bit of it is compromised, then the rest you still are healthy, you're still protected. So if your stratum corneum, that top layer is compromised, you will be dry or itchy, you're flaky, you're sensitive, you could have acne. So it's all really important to keep that barrier protected. So think of when your hands are dry, you're washing your hands a lot, or it's really cold weather, you're just kind of like, oh, my hands are dry, I need some lotion. And you put some lotion on them. If you don't get to the lotion, or if you don't find something that works for you, then they become kind of red or pink or irritated, or they're sensitive to heat. And then they can crack, and then they can bleed. So the stratum corneum, as you can see, the more compromised it is, the deeper it goes, the more problems you have. And then the dermis again. So if you can see, I don't want you to have to learn all this. You don't have to learn all this. But there, where you see the sebaceous gland right there in the dermis, in the bigger like pink section. So your sebaceous glands are there. That's what supplies the oil to the skin surface, reinforcing that waterproof barrier. The dermis plays a role in immune defense, right? Because if your skin's compromised, then there's less immunity. And also creating proliferation and differentiation. What that means is creating new cells and getting rid of old cells. So that cell turnover process occurs in that area. And I'm telling you all this because I want you to understand you have cannabinoid receptors in all of these areas, all throughout your body. So if they're in all these areas, they can do all these different things. They can affect all these different areas. It's important to know one thing before we go on: the hypodermis, which is in the very bottom where you have the blue and red sort of worm looking things. That's where your microcirculation is. So that's where your blood supply is.
And is it for like hair follicles as far as like hair?
Yeah. So for sure. So where the sebaceous gland is, coming up from that is the hair follicle. So that's where if you have CB2 and CB1 receptors affected by the cannabinoids, yes, it can create a balance. Now, it's not going to change genetics. So I can't change the genetics of that, but it can, some people will lose prematurely due to not just issues within their body, but that, your scalp is still your body. So creating, if I'm trying to create balance within my body with cannabinoids and I'm consuming, let's say, tinctures or edibles or smoking or whatever, I want to attack it from the outside going in too, right? We do things to take care of our internal health, and then we do things to take care externally. It's still your body, right? It's still all affected. So all the layers of the skin have nerve fibers that run through. So that's why we can use these products topically to affect pain. I'll get into that a little bit, but what can cannabis do for you overall? It creates and regulates fibroblasts. So fibroblast function is what heals your wounds. So you cut your finger and you grow new skin. That was fibroblasts. Or you have various different medical, cosmetic, dermatologist treatments that can grow new skin, create and trigger fibroblasts in your skin. That's also coming from this area. It's not, well, I'm going to get to that, sorry. If y'all have questions, you interrupt me, ask questions. So another thing it can do is work off of that. If it's affecting the balance, the differentiation of your cell turnover, then it can help with the precancerous cells, right? So we never just have cancer. We always have precancerous cells before we have cancer. So lots of times, that's why some of us go to the derm and we get a full body check, because you want to catch it before it's turned into cancer. So if I can affect the regulation of the cell turnover and the proliferation of the cells with cannabinoids, then I can catch that precancerous cells. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Rick Simpson's story and why he made a topical, and he says that it healed and cured his skin cancer. Another big one cannabinoids do is they suppress itch. So that's a huge thing. That's like the #1 thing we see in dermatologist offices. And the way that it does that, oops, I think we went too fast. Well, I'll stay here. So the way that it works is with lipids. The cannabinoid lipids that are found in this plant or in your body, it doesn't matter if it's endogenous or if it's exogenous, that can help regulate the sensory, the touch, the balance, the immunity internally, topically, all of that. Ideally, ideally we have perfect health, right? And perfect skin. Do y'all? No, we don't. And that's why we're here, right? So not having perfect health and perfect balance is something cannabis can really, really help us with. Have I said that enough? So all layers of your skin have that CB1 and CB2. Right? The cutaneous down deep, which is where it supplies the nerve fibers and supplies the microcirculation up into the sebum, all the way to the top, all the way in your whole body. The way that topicals work in your skin when you're using them for pain, like how does it help me with pain if it doesn't get into my bloodstream? Like your skin is not permeable, right? I can wash my bathroom with bleach and the bleach does not get into my bloodstream. Thank God, right? So having topical pain products that are used, only topical, don't get into your bloodstream. They're not transdermal, they're just pain salves. How do they work if they're not getting into your bloodstream? And here's how they work. So you have receptors all throughout. These CB1 and CB2 receptors that are touched by the topicals are then sending messengers down into these transient or nearby receptors. And those are the receptors that are responsible for things like pain and itch. So even though the cannabinoids that you're using topically, or the terpenes or whatever you're using for treatment from this plant, even though they don't get into your bloodstream, they still affect things that are much deeper, that affect the nerves. So it's a great big communication. It's a genius system, actually. But yeah, I should touch on transdermals. Do you know what transdermals are? Yeah, so transdermals are more for medicinal use. Transdermals are something that are specifically designed to get into your bloodstream. So think of like a nicotine patch and hormone patches, and you can get cannabinoid patches in medical marijuana programs. And when that's really not something that's for topical use or for skin care. That is something, yes, it goes on your skin, but it's designed to specifically be delivered down into this microcirculation of the hypodermis to work systemically. So it works in your bloodstream for things like pain commonly, to deliver the cannabinoids without going through. If you were going to consume this orally, you'd have to go through like a first pass metabolism and a digestive. And this way it's just a lot more bioavailable in your body. In the spa industry, I get a lot of questions from technicians. Can they use their pain salves on their clients, or their pain products, or their CBD skincare? Can they use these things on their clients? And how are they going to pass their drug tests if they're using it on their clients all day? So if they're drug tested, that's a real concern. And that's the answer. They're not using transdermal products. So it doesn't matter if they touch the plant. It doesn't matter if they're using pain salves and skincare. I personally love I do use a topical pain on my clients, and it's really helps to prevent, I have some thing happening in a joint here. And the more I treat my clients with these topicals, and the more I'm exposed to it, the better I feel. If I'm off work for 3 or 4 days, I feel it kind of coming back. So there's a nice benefit to that for me. So what else is in the plant? This is the second or third time I've seen this slide today. We all love this slide. Good. Yeah.
What are you talking about? I mean, that CB1, CB2, there's no THC receptors, right?
Well, so CB means cannabinoid receptors. Yeah. So the cannabinoid receptors. So THC is a cannabinoid. CBD is a cannabinoid, CBG, CBN, on and on. So CB1 primarily works with THC, CB2 primarily works with CBD, but there's a lot of crossover, and there's a lot. I actually just heard Nishi say, and I didn't know this, that, I mean, I knew that there was a better benefit of having whole plant medicine and using all of the cannabinoids available in the plant, but I didn't know that the research really was that using CBD and using THC together. And we can't say that that doesn't include the other cannabinoids, but we know for sure, because there was more research, using the CBD and the THC together is 4 times more therapeutic than just a CBD isolate, just using CBD. In general, because you have the receptors everywhere. So in the skincare world, primarily people are using isolates because it's easier to blend. It has no scent. It's more affordable in some cases, depending on where you are. But most of the time, people are using isolates, so they're really only getting that initial effect of a CBD without the long-term therapeutic effects from the whole plant. Yes, ma'am.
So I want to ask you if you know this, but he's a physician, so I think I don't know if like the app that is announced that CBD is out here.
Yeah, and I asked one, so I have patients that tell me they can buy the CBD. I've gone to Colorado before, and I tried to get the topical on the thing that just has THC. And for the most part, at least they're not saying that. I don't think much difference or relief with THC or without. I thought it was asking I had obviously looked at
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is for pain, like a topical pain. So, I mean, the research says that yes, CBD can be effective, but there's sort of a bell curve to it in that if I'm using a product that's multi-cannabinoid, maybe it's heavy in CBD, but I'm using a whole plant medicine, and then I'm also just using CBD. There's a lot of research that shows both are equally effective, and then the one that doesn't have the whole plant medicine kind of stops being as effective. Whereas the one that's whole plant medicine is the more you use it, the better effective it is. It's kind of like the more you use it, the less you need to use it. Does that make sense? So I mean, I firmly believe there is no reason for us to think that if we desire whole plant medicine with all the cannabinoids and the terpenes, everything present in the plant, if we desire that in what we smoke, eat, vape, tincture, all of that, then why not for our skin too? It's the same receptors. It's exactly the same receptors. So one of the drawbacks is people are afraid of THC. Some states won't allow THC at all. People are sort of adverse to what they consider weedy smells in their products. So smells in the products, segue. So what terpenes, I know you've heard this a bunch. I hope y'all went to see Max to speak yesterday morning. But they're the aromatic hydrocarbons in the plant that produce and contribute to what we call the essential oils, the things that give the plant not just the scent, but also the nuance effects that when you're consuming this, they do the same thing in your skin. There are benefits to having them in those skincare products similar to cannabinoids. So they can be anti-inflammatory, they can be detoxifying, they can contribute to wound healing, very antifungal, they can balance sebum. I mean, this is all the things I said about cannabinoids, and now I'm saying that about terpenes too. So terpenes are not just in cannabis, right? Rosemary has a scent. We can talk on and on about all the herbs that are very rich in terpenes. They're in the entire plant kingdom. Cannabis does, however, have the most abundant and largest variety of terpenes in it. And you know that if you've had any experience between, one chemovar that's called Blue Dream that you got in Oregon and one chemovar that's called Blue Dream that you got in Colorado, and they didn't smell alike at all. So the variety is endless in cannabis, really. So while, it's just the same, so that you can source these terpenes from things for skincare. You can source these terpenes from other plants. They don't have to come from cannabis. They're equally effective if they came from, rosemary was a good example, or if they came from lemon peels. They're equally effective. Your body doesn't care if you got your vitamin C from broccoli today, or if you got your vitamin C from an orange today. Your body just wants the vitamin C. So it's the same with these terpenes. So plant, just as long as they're plant sourced, it's equal in efficacy, no matter which. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about these. So some of you are probably familiar with these in your cannabis chemovars, your strains of cannabis, but in the skin, the linalool is also found in lavender, which is the most common example, but having it present in your skincare is similar to the effects you expect it from your oral or your smoking cannabis. Linalool is very, very good at calming inflammation. So think of it as a calming topical skincare, the same way that it's calming when you smell lavender, the same way that it's calming when you choose a strain that is linalool. Hi. Yeah, so I don't know that it's linalool, but some of the plants that produce a phytoestrogenic effect. So think of primarily like soy is a big one. I have not seen any studies that the topical use of linalool affects is a phytoestrogenic plant, but I have also heard that. But I have not seen anything to indicate that. But your clients that have my clients that have concerns about things that are phytoestrogenic, often they just don't fully understand, like, what does that mean and what are the risks? Because literally, every person in this room has some level of estrogen in their body. And your hormones are constantly fluctuating and changing anyway. We're just sitting here. So to introduce just a tiny bit of linalool, I've never seen a single study that discusses that it's a harmful phytoestrogenic effect. Similar, because what we're thinking of is things like soy, because that is like even wild yam and things. There are definitely some, when I like formulate a product, or if I'm trying to take on a new line, I want things that are soy free. For one thing, because I don't want to have the concerns of, well, this woman got breast cancer the next year and I sold her this product, but also because you can't sell it. People know, oh, I don't want that has soy. Like all of you try to avoid purchasing products that have sulfates, and you may not have any idea why, right? So now there's this, and I was just about to get to that, there's this whole skincare buzzwords that we think have meaning and don't really have a whole lot of meaning. So I want to go through these real fast, because myrcene, also very antibacterial, anti-inflammatory. Pinene is a really good one. It's antifungal. So if you think of like the nasty foot cream that your grandpa used to use, that's my grandpa did. They all smelled like pine. They had that real rich medicinal scent. Caryophyllene, also anti-inflammatory. Caryophyllene actually behaves and reacts with the same CB2 receptor that CBD does. So that's a really valuable one. And then limonene. So limonene, also an antioxidant. All of them are really beneficial also as preservatives. So having these terpenes added into your skincare, where they're sourced from cannabis or where they're sourced from somewhere else, besides having the benefits of that, creating that balance in your skin, they also can do double duty or triple duty, even if you want to use them for to mask scent. I'm not a big fan of heavily scented skincare. If it's like a body product, okay, but I still want them to be naturally sourced. And terpenes are just the best way, because they've got, a little bit of therapeutic compounds, plus they're a preservative. So I want to sort of get into a little bit of what Piper was saying. Sorry, don't look at the dog. Got a delay there. So how do you use these products? So I don't feel that not just cannabis in skincare, but any type of active ingredients, I don't feel they're very effective as like cleansers or things that are just only on your skin for a couple of minutes and then you rinse them off. It's a little bit of a waste of time. A cleanser is supposed to cleanse your skin in the most gentle way that you can tolerate and still be cleansed and leave your pH balance intact. When you're putting on things like that and hand sanitizers and toners and things that are really just either going to evaporate right off or rinse down the drain, I don't necessarily think there's anything harmful, but I just don't think that that's, as far as cost, that's not something that you should invest in. Cannabinoids they're lipophilic or hydrophobic. So they love oil a whole lot more than water. So if you can get those cannabinoids into a product that is lipid rich or fat rich or oil rich, then it's going to be greater efficacy in how it's used in the skin, how it's received in the skin. So even like your micro encapsulated and nano encapsulated, all of those products that have the tiny molecules in them, they're still better absorbed with fat. And that's true orally as well. So gummies don't have a lot of fat, right? But if you ate that avocado with that gummy, that's better received by those receptors in your digestive tract. So putting the ideal products really are those, like I said, that are in oil. So that's going to be like moisturizers and serums and masks and anything that's really oil rich and anything that stays on your skin for any length of time or anything that is massaged and worked into the skin. You still have to, like, I know anybody in here that's like into skincare, you still have your standards for skincare, right? You know what has worked for you in the past or doesn't work for you or what you try to avoid. So you'll have to combine your standards for skincare with your standards for cannabis, because if you're a cannabis enthusiast, you probably have, you want to know what to ask for, like the growing practices and how it's extracted and safety testing, and you can ask for those test results from your skincare as well. But if you're purchasing a skincare product that's cannabinoid rich, the person selling it to you should have done that legwork for you. And I would like to be able to tell you, hey, you know what, I wouldn't be using this on your face if I hadn't have already done the research to know that the lab tests were clean and that it contains what it should contain. So I really like, just like for cannabis oral products and skincare, I like products that are UV protective. So dark bottles, glass and not plastic, because things do evaporate. It's the same with skincare. Cannabinoids having cannabinoids in it is no exception. Those are still things that are really important. I, like I said, prefer no added fragrance. Having some terpenes in there is going to make it fragrant, but I'm saying no added fragrance, meaning I don't want to add it just because it smells good. Now I might choose to use linalool over beta-caryophyllene because I would prefer it to smell softer and more floral than, you know, masculine and more foresty. So you might choose your terpenes based on that. A lot of times products have a scent added as fragrance or a scent added as matte to mask the scent that was original to the formula. So if the formula was not really, didn't have a desirable scent to it, they'll just use it to mask, and that's okay. It's just, we really want to stay away from all the artificial ones. I actually also prefer to stay away from essential oils in skincare. I know that that's not a popular thing to hear someone say, but it's pretty universally agreed on in the skincare world. Essential oil skincare typically is causing a lot of reactions and building up into conditions that you really sort of were not sure what's going on. I'm using this natural skincare and my skin is really bothering me. It's usually essential oils if you're using natural skincare. So I don't love having essential oils in my skincare. I do prefer to have the terpenes individually selected, because although I said that linalool comes from lavender, there's a whole lot of other terpenes in lavender. So just throwing lavender oil in there is not always going to be your best choice. You can ask if the products you're using are isolate. That it's okay. CBD has some effects being an isolate, like we were just talking about, but it's far less effective if it doesn't have these other compounds. So having other compounds from the plant are going to address other issues that either CBD can't do alone or can't do by itself. So it's the same topically as it is internally. So some of the things you'll hear more and more and more of in skincare is the words like, what does it mean if I say, well, I only use natural products? What does that mean? Does anybody know what that means? There's no definition for that. There's no definition for that. I mean, I'm like, I don't know, heroin comes from poppies. That sounds pretty natural to me. So there's no definition for words like natural. I mean, these are undefined, unregulated words. So the word organic is real, but it's only going to apply to the growing practices of one ingredient. So if I say this is my organic skincare, then I must mean that everything in there that could be grown was grown organically, but maybe it's just one ingredient that's organic. And people, just like with food, tend to think that because something's healthier or it's got, you know, a pretty green, natural looking label, that it's a natural skincare. So it's okay to use these terms, but let's make sure that who we're using the terms with, we have an agreed upon definition of the terms. So hypoallergenic does not even have a term, I mean, a definable term. What it means is there are, it's less likely to cause you to have allergies because it's omitting what my company perceives to be common allergens. Well, that might not be what the next company perceives to be common allergens. So hypoallergenic, it's not that that's not a good word. It does start a conversation, but still there's no definition. It's not a regulated definition. Another word is cosmeceutical. That's a really fun new word. It implies, like, doesn't it make you feel like, oh, wow, this is going to make me look good, but it's also medicinal. Maybe it will, but also that's not an actual type of product. Yes. Cosmonaut. So, you know, there are things that exist, like things called professional skincare. So professional skincare would mean only licensed estheticians and derms can purchase it, use it, or sell it. That's good. That's a good sign because hopefully we know a little bit. But having products. So people, another thing you hear is the word chemical. That's hard to define when people say, well, I have to use no chemicals in my skincare. Well, like literally water is a chemical. What's not a chemical? What do you put in your skincare that's not a chemical? Because everything's a chemical. So I think what should be said is not a harmful chemical. And okay, now let's define harmful chemicals. So there's a lot of companies that do just skincare in general, even that do say we avoid these chemicals and we avoid these added fragrances and we avoid these preservatives. That's great. I hope it helps them sell products. Most reputable companies are avoiding those anyway. So kind of, find someone you can trust to help you understand that it's just, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. There's no FDA rules for skincare. There are FDA regulated ingredients that can and can't be used. There are highly researched ingredients that exist, but it's not even required to pre-approve a formula with the FDA. Like I don't have to say, oh, I just made this. Like I brought y'all samples today. I didn't have to get the FDA to approve that before I give it to you, but I can still be scrutinized. If the FDA saw that I labeled it and I sold it for money, they could say, oh, we're going to see what she's doing here. Hi.
So, SLS, you mentioned that at the beginning, but you didn't really.
Sodium lauryl sulfate?
Yeah, SLS or whatever.
Uh-huh.
So there's no clinical evidence that it's irritant?
No, there's some clinical evidence that it's an irritant long-term to some people, okay? But it's not, are you asking, what are you asking?
I avoid it because I feel like it makes my, I avoid shampoo, anything really, because I feel like it makes my skin.
Absolutely. So if you feel like this ingredient makes your skin itchy, then you know to avoid sulfates. You know to avoid SLS. Sulfates are the thing that makes things soapy and sudsy. It's a chemical, artificial, lab created. There are naturally, there's that word, derived sulfates. Most of the time they come from coconut. So what if you're sensitive to sulfates, but you're also allergic to coconut? So you're probably not going to find anything that's foamy. You don't have to have foamy, sudsy stuff to cleanse your face or your hair. We just like it because it makes us feel like it's cleaner. Right? So yeah. So SLS, yeah, certainly there's a definition of that because it's a literal ingredient, but it's an FDA approved ingredient. So people can use it and still say this is FDA approved. And you think, oh, great, it's FDA approved, I'll take it. But yet SLS makes you itchy, right? Or maybe I say this is sulfate free and you buy it, but what you didn't know is it's coconut derived it's like a coconut derived sulfatite, and that now it's sulfate free, but you're allergic. Is what? I can't hear you. Okay, I can hear you. So now you see, like, there's just a lot of smoke and mirrors, and most of you know that if you buy multiple products, if you have gone, like if you have a whole drawer full of skincare because you thought you were going to love it and you didn't, you might be. I have my clients when they come in the first time for sure, and then like maybe every 6 months reevaluate, send me a picture or bring me all the products that you're using now and let's sort of break it down. Bring me the ones that you like. And it's so common that I'm like, well, these 4 are the same. This one smells different than this one and this label's different. Yeah. So I don't use a professional CBD skincare line. I have not found to this minute right here a skincare line that combines like my standards for skincare and my standards for cannabis in one line. So what I do is what a lot of people in my industry do is we cocktail products together. So I do have some oral products that I use in the spa for topical use. So I may take these, usually it's an oil, like a tincture, but an oil infusion. And I cocktail them together, and I usually am putting them into the masks and the massage or the moisturizer, or one or the other, or all 3. And I have access to the lab reports. I trust these cannabinoid content products, and I already have skincare that I love, so I'm combining them together. I've been doing that for a while, and I'll be honest, since we're at this conference in Texas for Texas, one of the reasons I waited is because I wanted it to be Texas sourced. When I knew that hemp was going to be legal in Texas, I wanted to only formulate with Texas products because I'm a Texan. Yes, a ma'am in the green. Yeah, I believe you had your hand up. Oh,
She said man. Oh, did you say ma'am in green or man?
Piper, go ahead.
Okay. So,
You're next. She forgot a question.
On the CB1 and CB2 receptors on the skin, have they ever had patients where you do have the damage? Say, for instance, patients for veterans that had Agent Orange. Have you ever treated any of that with your medication?
I've never treated someone with Agent Orange with topical products. However, I fully believe that if you have skin that's non-permeable, right? It's not an open wound. So having some compromised skin, happens occasionally. But I'm just about to get to what I did formulate and what I did bring and sort of combine it with the herbalism stuff that I do. But if you can heal the barrier of your skin, you can then begin to correct other concerns. But if your barrier is compromised, you have to treat and heal that before you do anything else to make yourself pretty or younger or have less hyperpigmentation or less acne. I want to get rid of inflammatory conditions and I want to treat the barrier first. I don't care who you are. If that's not done, I can't do anything else. So within that circumstance, having that type of skin damage, we have to find a way to make sure the skin is protected and so it can heal itself. And if we're going to boost it with cannabinoids, because remember I said it helps balance the cell proliferation and the keratinocytes, their role. So if we're going to balance that out and boost it, then we want it to be first for healing before we're doing it for like correction. Does that answer that? Y'all are killing me. Okay, so using my knowledge as an herbalist, go ahead, honey.
So it was about TMJ. So I'm a dental hygienist, and they're giving facials. Like there's a lot of times where I'll like do TMJ.
Nice.
In my clinic. But it's only when we have a discussion about them having pain that they're TMJ and so I know that I have a lot of patients, and I see in general, most people have TMJ, most people grind their teeth. And
I feel like everyone right now in the whole room just went,
yeah, and like
check your jaw, check your jaw.
and there's so many places in, like all the muscles of our TMJ are like not really legible. We have so many here, so like I'm wondering if you address like TMJ at all.
I do. I mean, I do when I do face massage. So I take a full eval and say, let's talk about your skin. Why are you here? What are you using on your skin? What are your expectations? But then I also want to know, do you have any injuries to head, neck, and shoulder, hands, and arms? Because I'm massaging, I'm rubbing you everywhere. And if you tell me TMJ, then I'm going to probably make sure I use, even if your skin conditions were not needing cannabinoids today, I'm still going to use it when I'm getting into those muscles because the massage does. I'm not going to use the body products because the body products tend to have a little too rich terpenoid content for your face. But
And so this is something that I'm kind of fascinated by too with the TMJ. Like I brought it up in they being innervated by the vagus nerve.
yes,
The vagus nerve
yeah,
affects your whole body.
Uh-huh.
It also affects homeostasis.
Uh-huh.
And
it's connected. So I get migraines, and I have found, this is really kind of totally off topic now, but I have found that by treating vagus nerve issues, a lot of that's with breathing, humming, different practices that I do. By treating that vagus nerve issue, I have now less migraines, right? Or treating gut health, which affects the vagus nerve. Yeah, I mean, we're all connected, right? From tips to toes, and everything in between, from rooter to tutor, right? That's what my granny would say. So, what? So, I do create products. I have not developed a professional line yet because, like I said, I wanted to wait and Texas source it. But using my knowledge as an herbalist, because remember I said I started as an herbalist, like the little green jar on the far left, I create this and I use this all the time. This is a calendula and plantain based green tea grapeseed oil. So it's really very, very healing. And I have used it for many things like sunburn, windburn, sensitivities, itchy, bug bites, hydration. Grapeseed oil is really, really, really low on the communogenity of skincare, meaning how much will it clog your pores? So think of Vaseline as being the worst. So I want you to choose your skincare, your cannabinoid also based on what natural oils are in it, because you want those to be safe for your skin. I just throw this out there right now. Coconut oil, not the best choice for your skin every single day. May feel good, but it's actually you're sort of developing a barrier dependency to it. Does that make sense? Everybody nod with me on the coconut oil. I'm not totally against it. I think it has a great place in topical use, but I don't find that it's the best choice for topical skincare for your face. Hemp seed oil, pretty good. Hemp seed oil is really rich in omega fatty acids. It's really high in omega 7 or 3, 6, and 7. Sea buckthorn oil, that's also in the product that I brought today, really high also in these omegas. Your lighter oils like almond oil, all of these are pretty good for skin, most skin conditions and skin types. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit higher on the communogenity scale than the ones I mentioned, but it's still not bad. So if you don't have a tendency for acne, then that's a pretty good one. It tends to go rancid fast. So yeah. Yeah, it does go real. It tends to do that, doesn't it? It's unfortunate. Yes, ma'am. Great question. So probably grapeseed oil. Right, rosehip oil is really low too. So what I brought today, and I can talk to you about this all day long if you want to. But the little serums I brought, they're up here in a box. But what I brought today, it can be like an oil-based cleanser. So you can massage it into your face, add some water, massage, add some more water, and then you can splash it off if you have dry skin, or you can use a cloth and remove it. So now it's an oil, that's an oil-based cleanser. Same product could also be like a healing skin serum under your moisturizer. If you have oily skin, if you're afraid of oils, if you just want to kind of dip your toe in the product before you commit to it, then add it to your moisturizer. So I really feel like within lines, especially skincare lines that are really vast, you could probably take out over half of them because most of them are the same thing, just with different labels. So I don't believe in that, which, when I formulate it, it's either going to work out in a good way or bad way that I don't offer you 3 products, because you could purchase 3 products or you could purchase one that does the same thing. You can't always do that, but in this circumstance, you absolutely can. So I have a lot of herbalists that I have consulted, that I talk to, that agree with me on these oils. So it's not just they do have a way to measure the communogenity, but they're using those lighter oils for long-term use is usually better even for your people with dry skin, because what I'm trying to do is create more balance in the skin. So before you take these, some people are going to want to know, yes, they're vegan. Yes, they're free of parabens. There's no gluten. There's no soil. Were they animal tested? Yes, they were tested on one dog. That's my dog. And so I do use this on my dog to treat like hot spots and itchy stuff. And it's incredibly effective. So I want to wrap up a little bit here. So if you have any more questions, I will take those. But really, as powerful as cannabinoid medicine is, and as powerful it is, internally and topically, cannabis is just another good skin ingredient. There's a lot of really great possibilities with it. There's unfortunately not the research and the studies that we need to support it. It seems really clear that the plant, it helps us internally. that it can also do the same thing topically and treat these multiple skin conditions because it's the same receptors. It's going to take, it's going to take a lot more research to really fully understand the cannabinoid medicine in our bodies and topically. And then, of course, it's going to take access to do that. Is that it? Anybody else have a question? Heather? Oh, I would love for you to participate. Also, I brought skincare samples up here if y'all want to grab them on your way out. So we have a silent auction going on in the back. Each frame has a QR code. There's also QR codes if you want to just go to the main auction, but each frame will have a QR code. You can go in and all you do is just create an account and start bidding, and you'll get notifications if you're getting outbid and you want to bid again. There's some really cool stuff, y'all. There's some great experiences and services and items that you can take home today. There's lots of CBD products. There's 2 CBD packages that are identical that are from Day Gold, which I love. I think that's like my favorite CBD product over there. There's a Texas-based hemp product basket. Texas Normal brought some swag. There is float therapy. Have you heard of that salt float tank experience? There's that. There's art. There's sound therapy meditation. There's yoga classes. There's a lot of good stuff. Say what? There's Kelsey's photography. Yeah, if you're in the Austin area, grab that one. That's a beautiful choice. And all of the money goes to help us fund this event first and foremost, and the expenses involved here, and then Texans for Responsible Marijuana Policy, just like your tickets. So, anybody else? I can answer questions on the auction items too. Yes, ma'am, with the blue. Acne and oily skin. So I'm still going to go back. If you would have said any skin condition, I would have still said the same answer. I want to treat the balance of the skin. So I realize that there's an internal component to why you have acne, right? Or even to why you have dry skin. And we want to treat that internally too, but you kind of know I got to drink all my water. I need to cut out the fast food. You know what your triggers are. Some of them we can't control. Some of them are hormonal, right? And we can't always control them. But if I'm treating topical, I want to create balance. And I want to do that with a full spectrum plant. The terpenes that were present in the plant, specifically try some like linalool and myrcene, the calming terpenes. I want to create balance in the skin so that there's less breakouts. Now, there are a lot of acne products. You know, there's the regular, you know, vitamin A, retinoids, salicylic acid, all of those. And I know I stood up here today and talked about, you know, cannabis and skincare. I think that the possibilities are extremely exciting. I don't think that we have all the research to specifically say you need CBG for your acne, but you know, you're a little older than she is and your acne, you're probably going to do better with something that's CBD rich. We don't have enough of that research to do the cannabinoid. We don't even have that for internally enough of that. So we have to have the access to the plant to get that. But there's a lot of proven and very, very tested skincare ingredients that are very safe. So, you know, retinoids are a big one. I could do this twice as long if we talk about retinoids. Anybody else? No? Awesome. Thank y'all. Thanks for being here. It's been the last few days, I felt like an enormous amount of gratitude for all of us being here together. Like, let's get warm and fuzzy and woo-woo for a minute. Like, there's a whole bunch of shit going on in this world, and here we are just trying to fight for one little plant on this planet, like one little plant. So I feel real grateful that we're all here and we have the freedom and the fortunate lives to sit here and do that for one little plant. I think that's kind of special.